The thermos was the only thing in my backpack that felt warm. I wrapped my fingers around it, savoring the heat that radiated through the metal. The sun was already starting to set and the air was getting colder. I was deep in the woods, miles from my car, and the thought of being alone in the dark made my heart race. I knew I needed to make a fire, but I had no matches and my lighter was long dead. No knife, no matches, no light. What now? I decided to find a water source and set up a fishing line to catch some food. Without a fishing hook, I needed to make one. I found a sharp thorn and using my teeth and fingernails, I bent the thorn to create a small hook. Fishing with this improvised hook would be challenging, but it could help me survive the night. However, I knew I had to follow local fishing regulations and seasons, and I wouldn't attempt to fish unless I was certain about the laws and the species I could legally catch. I also understood that finding and eating wild plants or animals without expert identification could be extremely dangerous. With no safe way to make a fire, I kept moving to stay warm and dry, knowing hypothermia could set in quickly if I wasn't careful. I had brought along a small thorn from a nearby bush, thinking it might come in handy. I pulled it out, inspecting the sharp point under the dim light of my phone. I needed to make a fishing hook, and this thorn would have to do. Since I didn't have any fishing line, I'd have to improvise. I started by stripping the thorn down to its sharp tip, biting down on the bark to break it off. It was tough work, but it needed to be done. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. I had to stay focused. Remember, while making a makeshift fishing hook can be a valuable survival skill, it's important to know local fishing laws and seasons. Always ensure you have the necessary permits and follow regulations to avoid legal trouble. The trail marker ahead was my only sign of hope. I knew it meant I was getting closer to civilization. But the path was narrowing and the trees were getting thicker. Night was falling fast and I could feel the cold seeping into my bones. I knew I had to act fast. I used a piece of string I had salvaged from my backpack to tie a thorn to a small stick I found lying on the ground. It wasn't perfect, but it would have to do for catching fish. Always check your local regulations before attempting to fish in the wild. I couldn't afford to waste any more time. I cast the makeshift hook into a nearby stream, hoping against hope that I'd catch something. The water was cold and I shivered as I waited. Nothing happened for what felt like hours. I began to wonder if I'd made a mistake. The temperature was dropping rapidly and my breath was visible in the air. I knew I needed to keep moving, but every step felt like an eternity. The cold was relentless and I could feel my fingers going numb. I needed a fire, but I had no way to start one. I looked around frantically, hoping to find some dry wood, but everything was wet and damp. In situations like this, it's crucial to stay calm and methodical. Remember, hypothermia can set in quickly in cold water or air, so it's important to take action to warm up. If you're near a stream, look for natural insulators like leaves or grass to build a makeshift shelter. Stay safe and conserve energy until help arrives or you find a way to safely start a fire. The darkness was closing in, and the only sound was the rustling of leaves in the wind. I could hear a snapping noise behind me, and my heart skipped a beat. I turned around but saw nothing. I tried to shake off the feeling, but the cold was making it hard to think clearly. I needed to focus. I pulled the thorn out of the water, examining it for any sign of a fish. There was nothing. I was running out of time. The sky was dark now and the moon was nowhere to be seen. I needed to find a place to hunker down and stay warm. Before settling in, I should set up a proper fishing hook using a bone or thorn. I spotted a small cave-like opening in the rocks near the stream. It looked like it might shield me from the wind, but the thought of being in a cave with no light made me uneasy. I had no choice. I gathered some dry sticks, but they were too wet to start a fire. The cold was setting in and I could feel the sweat on my back turning icy. I knew I needed to get inside the cave, but the thought of what might be inside terrified me. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The darkness was complete, and the only sound was my own breathing. To stay safe, I needed to find dry materials or a way to start a fire, and ensure I had a reliable light source before exploring deeper into the cave. I sat down, hugging my knees to my chest, trying to stay warm. I could feel the dampness seeping through my clothes, and the cold was unbearable. I knew I had to keep moving to avoid hypothermia, but my body was giving out. I needed to find a way to signal for help, but I had nothing. I knew I was running out of time. I needed to find a way to stay alive, so I started looking for materials to make a fishing hook from a bone or thorn, which might help me catch fish for food and keep me warm. But I also knew I needed to find dry shelter and a way to purify water to avoid dehydration and illness. The wind picked up and I could hear it howling outside the cave. I shivered uncontrollably, wishing I had something to protect me. The only thing I had was my thermos, but it was already getting cold. I knew I had to find a way to keep warm. I needed a fire, but I had no way to start one. The only thing I could do was to keep moving and hope for the best. I needed to find dry materials and start a fire to stay warm and dry. I also had to find a way to signal for help, but I had no way to do it. I decided to focus on catching fish to eat and keep warm. Using a sharp rock, I made a fishing hook from a thorn. I had to be cautious and ensure I followed local fishing regulations and seasons if I were in a survival scenario. The moon finally appeared, casting a dim light into the cave. I could see the rocks around me, and I knew I needed to find a way to stay warm. I started to look for dry wood, but everything was wet. I knew I needed to find a way to start a fire, but I had no matches or lighter. I remembered the thorn I had used to make a temporary fishing hook. It was sharp, and I could use it to try scraping against a rock to create a spark, but this method was risky and required patience and luck. I carefully scraped the thorn against a piece of flint, hoping to generate enough heat to ignite some tinder. It was a long shot, but I had to try, and I made sure to follow safety guidelines to prevent injury. The sound of my scraping echoed through the cave, and I could hear the wind howling outside. I focused on the task, trying to ignore the cold and the fear. I kept scraping, and finally a small spark appeared. I blew on it, and it grew into a small flame. I quickly gathered some dry leaves and twigs and built a small fire. The warmth was a relief, and I felt a sense of accomplishment. I knew I needed to stay focused and stay warm. I had to find a way to signal for help, but I had no way to do it. I needed to keep moving, but the cold was making it hard to think. Before I left the cave, I needed to ensure I had a reliable method of catching fish to sustain me until rescue. I carefully shaped a bone and a thorn into hooks using my makeshift tools. Fishing in cold water is dangerous. Hypothermia can set in quickly, so I made sure to gather plenty of firewood to keep warm once I returned to shore. The fire was my only source of light, and I could see the rocks around me. I knew I needed to find a way to signal for help, but I had no way to do it. I remembered the thorn I had crafted into a fishing hook. It was sharp, and I thought I could use it to scrape against a rock to create a spark for a signal fire. It was a long shot, but I had to try. I kept scraping, and finally a small spark appeared. I blew on it, and it grew into a small flame. I quickly gathered some dry leaves and twigs and built a small fire. The fire was my only hope of signaling for help. Remember, always carry fire-starting materials in your survival kit and know the local laws and seasons for fishing and any other bushcraft activity. I knew I needed to stay focused and warm. The cold was making it hard to think, so I decided to keep moving and stay active. To survive, I needed a way to signal for help, but I had no means to do so. Remembering a thorn I had fashioned into a makeshift fishing hook, I thought of its potential to scrape against a rock to create a spark for a signal fire. Fishing hooks made from thorns or bone are a useful skill in a survival scenario. I used the thorn to scrape against a rock, hoping to generate a spark. It was a long shot, but I had to try. After much scraping, a small spark appeared. I blew on it until it grew into a flame. Tomorrow on the survival files, building an emergency shelter in high winds and heavy rain.